on C-SPAN. Now we'll look at Serbian news coverage of NATO airstrikes on Yugoslavia from government-controlled Radio Television Serbia in Belgrade. This portion of the news was recorded yesterday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern and translated here at C-SPAN in Washington, D.C. It's about a half hour.
You're watching the primetime news of Radio Television Serbia. Respected viewers, with the decree of the President of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, Slobodan Milošević, and in commemoration of the Day of Victory over Fascism, the following officers are decorated with the Order of Courage for their dedication and professional conduct in their anti-aircraft defense against a technically superior enemy. Major Dotlić Danila Boško, Lieutenant Janković Milenka Tiosav, Master Sergeant First Class Vučković Hriste Slađan, for their personal heroism, self-initiative in the conduct of their military tasks against a technically superior enemy. The Medal of Honor was given to Major Roksandić Mihajla Milorad, Master Sergeant First Class Matić Branislava Draga, Master Sergeant First Class Tintor Blanco. The medal for their virtues in the area of defense and security of the fatherland. Special medal was given to the soldier Popović Sima. According to the decree of the President, this was read to all units of the armed forces of Yugoslavia. The government of Serbia at today's session, presided over by Mirko Marjanović, considered the measures for alleviating the consequences of the evil bombardment against civilian targets. The evil attacks on the urban centers of Belgrade, Niš, Kragujevac, Novi Sad, Čačak, Valjevo, Užice and other places in Serbia. The aggressor is trying to destroy our people and country. By bombing the building of the government of Serbia, these vandals attempted to assassinate the highest executive body of our government and thus damaged a priceless architectural monument of Serbia's cultural heritage. The government of Serbia continues its activities and carries them out in terms of the defense of the country and the people from the civil aggression. By attacking the Chinese embassy, the NATO fascists want to terrorize all freedom-loving people of our world who are fighting for peace and are opposed to the policy of force and madness. Unscrupulous to all international norms, NATO shows its true intention to subjugate the world to its dictate and force all people into obedience. These are war crimes against our civilizational values that will never be forgotten, and their commanders and executors will certainly answer to justice. Our people are unified in supporting their leadership to defend our vital national interests. The government also considered the implementation of the economic program for employment of workers from war-ravaged factories. Intense operations are underway to employ the people left jobless because of the military actions. At the same time, the government assistance is there to accelerate the reconstruction activities in damaged facilities for a quick re-establishment of their operations. The measures of the government in implementing short-term social protection measures secured the jobs of those whose workplaces were destroyed by the war activities of the aggressor. Targets of the criminal alliance, once again, and also last night, were civilian facilities throughout Serbia. Today at 11:25, 3 missiles by the evil alliance attacked the already destroyed storage facility of Jugopetrol in the northwestern zone of Niš. From about 2,000 meters of elevation, the facility was attacked precisely when it was being visited by Gorica Gajević, Secretary General of the Socialist Party of Serbia, and the Vice President of the Council of the Republics of Yugoslavia. Also present were the Vice President of the Socialist Party, the General Manager of the facility, as well as Jovan Zlatić, Commander of the Civil Defense Units in Niš, escorted by numerous journalists and TV crews. Severely injured are Duško Mašković and Duško Aleksić from the police forces. Lighter injuries were suffered by an editor of TV Serbia, Goran Čirić, and about 10 more people. At the same time, The dead numbered Zoran Nikolic, born in 1959, who was killed in his own backyard, and Jagoda Mladenovic in her own garden in the village of Orljana in the county of Doljevac. To remind you, this is the third attack so far on the storage facility of Jugopetrol, which can no longer serve as any target for the aggressor. So it's very clear that the real targets were these high political and party officials. Gorica Gajevic, Secretary General of the Socialist Party of Serbia, immediately after the attack made the following statement for Television Serbia. Today, the Vice President of the Socialist Party of Serbia and myself came to Niš to visit one of the countless places of NATO criminal deeds. Here, just as everywhere else, the victims are civilians, children, women, old people. The targets are civilian facilities, hospitals, markets, houses. But this time, while visiting already destroyed facilities, we became target and victims of an airplane that was flying very low over our heads and sent missiles about 20 meters away from us and the TV crews. They injured severely one wonderful young man from the police forces, Goran Aleksic. Also injured was the Vice President Duško Matković, who is still being operated. Fortunately, I was rescued with the help of my colleagues from Niš. But in the past hour or so, I also convinced myself that the spirit of the people is unflinching and that the citizens of Niš, just as the citizens throughout the country, are determined and unified in the defense of the freedom, independence, and this determination and unity, this heroism of the people, the police. We are led by our Supreme Commander Slobodan Milošević, and this is all guaranteed that we shall defend our vital state and national interests, and that we shall continue to abide by the politics of peace and the resolution of all Kosovo problems in political manner, for equality of all national groups. NATO aggressors today at 12:08 initiated their 9th attack on Čačak. The planes attacked for 20 minutes. In the town, one could hear 6 strong explosions. Target was again the industrial zone, especially the factory CER and the Technical Institute. This zone was attacked yesterday in the afternoon, killing 4 people. The facilities of NIS Naftagas, very close to the center of Čačak, were also hit. The strong explosions damaged houses in the area of Kulinovci, very close to NIS Naftagas. No human casualties are recorded. For a third time, the NATO criminals attacked the Ovčar mountain. One missile hit the factory for textiles, and another missile hit close to the medical center in Mrčajevac. At 12:15, NATO Air Force attacked Valjevo for the 11th time. This time, the target was again Krušik factory, already completely destroyed. So far attacked 9 times with over 80 missiles. Once again, they damaged the buildings in the nearby area, and you can see heavy smoke from the Krušik factory. The civil defense units confirmed that there is no danger for the population because this is the fuel at the bottom of the reservoir that's burning. Acting successfully, the anti-aircraft units in Smederevo managed last night around 11:34 to hit a missile of the enemy alliance. Part of the missile fell on a house in a residential area in Smederevo, causing severe damage. They also damaged some other surrounding houses. You can see a lot of broken window panes, and many facades are damaged. 2 people have been lightly injured, but after the doctor's help, they were sent home. Last night, around 11:15, the missiles of the NATO criminals hit the overpass on the road between Belgrade and Niš, close to Velika Plana. Thus, they disabled the right side from Belgrade. The traffic on this road has been stopped in both directions. At the same time, the aggressor disabled the railroad tracks connecting Belgrade and Velika Plana. In the destructive attack of NATO, there were no injuries. This is the first attack of the NATO criminals in the area of Velika Plana. The aggressor alliance continued its attacks on Kraljevo County. About 10 minutes after noon, Two strong missiles hit the suburb of Jarčuljak for a second time since the beginning of the aggression. 3 people were injured and dozens of residential and other buildings suffered a lot of material damage. Today around 12:45, the criminal NATO alliance for a third time attacked with 2 missiles the bridge on Kokino Brod on the highway between Nova Varoš and Užice. The bridge was destroyed to the ground. This was another second attack on a bridge in Prijepolje, also on a highway that leads to the coast. No confirmed data on the consequences of this enemy attack. The headquarters of the civil defense units of Novi Banat area announced that the NATO aggressors attacked once again the area of Pančevo. 2 missiles hit the Novo Selo in Banat. Only 10 minutes later, village Starčevo became a target. 1 missile hit a private house on the outskirts of the village towards Omorica. There are several injured civilians. A little bit after 2 p.m., the enemy air force attacked the area of Šabac. 2 missiles hit the village area of Korman, where they already had destroyed a radio transmitter. 4 missiles targeted the TV transmitter on Cer mountain. At the same time, 2 strong detonations were heard close to Šabac, damaging several houses and a school, as reported by the local headquarters of the civil defense units. NATO planes continued their relentless attack on civilian targets in Kosovo. This morning around 8 a.m., 3 missiles targeted the relay station at Kutlovac near Stari Trg. They also hit the area between Uroševac and Erili Prelas. 3 attacks were recorded on the villages in Lipljan County. Several bombs exploded in the fields near those villages. Around 1:20 in the afternoon, 4 explosions shook Pristina. NATO planes targeted the forest behind the Pristina suburb of Dragodan. This morning's bombing of Starogradsko village killed 3 civilians, including a child. The enemy bombed last night Kosovo Polje, the park area Grmija near Pristina, the village Lukar inhabited only by Albanians. 5 cluster bombs fell on the border area near Đakovica. Target of the aggressor alliance this morning around 3:30 was also the bridge on the railroad between Belgrade Thessaloniki and the bridge on the highway between Belgrade Skopje Thessaloniki in the area of Grdelica. As reported by our correspondent, these bridges already attacked were hit with 3 more missiles. At the same time, 7 missiles fell on Sinkovac, suburb of Leskovac. After last night's attack on Murina, this little town in the northwestern part of Montenegro is a wasteland. They destroyed the bridge on Lim River, also a power station, post office, dozens of houses, the roof of the grammar school Petar Dedović. Due to the destruction of the power station, there is no electricity in the villages of Plava and Businja as well. Local water supply is interrupted, telephone lines are out. The locals are no longer in the villages. They're being hidden in other villages around. Here, not even the shops are working, so people have to find out what to do by themselves. Western sources acknowledge that the NATO air offensive so far has led to a loss of over 70 planes and some 200 cruise missiles, notes the latest issue of our journal Army. NATO headquarters continues, however, to hide their losses, but acknowledges the high levels of skills of the Yugoslav anti-aircraft units. The dissent on many questions creates, as the paper notes, a growing confusion among the aggressors, amplified daily by the dissatisfaction of the pilots who are sent into high-risk and genocidal missions without well-defined tactical goals. Recently, they've been denied their ejection systems. The command structure of Yugoslav armed forces has shown that our knowledge, strategy, tactics and imagination are superior to the schematic variants of the NATO generals, who concede reluctantly that Yugoslav armed forces have outwitted them. The defense of our fatherland, Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, is our victory, stated the commander of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Lieutenant General Dragoljub Ojdanić, upon receiving the highest order, the Silver Plate, bestowed upon him on this day of the victory over the fascists by Professor Milo Marković, President of the Association of World War II Veterans. By bestowing upon you this distinction for a successful command over the Yugoslav armed forces, we express our admiration recognition for what all of the units of our army do in their heroic fight with a technologically superior aggressor, stated Professor Markovic. In his thanks for this order, General Ojdanic said that this is a recognition of the entire armed forces of Yugoslavia and noted, they cannot destroy our love for our fatherland, and they cannot destroy our right to fight primarily for peace, although we have to wage a war to fight for freedom, to protect our independence and our sovereignty and territorial integrity. I'm convinced that the international public opinion within the international community will finally learn about the true goals of this world hegemonistic force, and that they will become even more decisive in their support for justice and truth, in their advocacy for the respect of the UN Charter and all other international norms, and that they will do everything in their power not to allow this hegemonistic force to reach its goals by tailoring the world according to their needs and values, while trying to reach their strategic goals. The Army of Yugoslavia will follow the commands of the Supreme Command. NATO is not going to prevent us. The borders of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia will remain safe, and our duties of defense, we will not spare our lives, said General Ojdanic at the end of this ceremony when he was given the Order of the Knights of the Serbian and Montenegrin Armed Forces. More than 30 days we have seen the joint aggression from Albania by Albanian forces, NATO Air Force and the terrorists. The aggressor is trying to penetrate our territory between several checkpoints along the Albanian border. They're failing despite the daily actions. We visited this part of border along Albania. We visited for the first time the defenders around Morina checkpoint. They are in control of the territory and prevent the aggressor from entry. The first line of defense is stable despite the synchronized attacks of the NATO alliance, Albanian army and the terrorists. From their well-hidden positions, the members of Pristina Corps monitor the Albanian side, noting every move of the terrorists. From these positions, you can easily note all movements and prevent the aggressor. NATO bombing, the Albanian artillery and the terrorists have not managed to weaken our defenses in the least. In their failure, now they have expressed their rage by bombarding our checkpoint in Morina, which has been empty from the beginning of the aggression. Despite the persistent and almost daily attempts of the aggressor from the territory of Albania to penetrate our defense and enter our territory, all of their efforts have failed, although they have the support of NATO from air, as well as of the Albanian army and artillery units. We managed to inflict a lot of damage on them, losses to the Albanian terrorist gangs, who are oftentimes quite numerous and well equipped, but at the same time we have managed to protect ourselves. For the remainder of the day, we were at one of those positions between the checkpoints of Morina and Košara. Given the fact that they just noticed some Albanian terrorists, we remain there. We're on the front lines of the defense of our territory. There are daily attempts of the terrorists to penetrate our defense line. Sometime after 4 o'clock, we noticed a group of terrorists who tried to approach the position of our combatants. Prepare yourself. Ready. Here they come. Be ready. Their moves indicated that this could be a scout mission trying to enter under the cover of NATO Air Force and the Albanian artillery. This, however, did not prevent our combatants from identifying the terrorists immediately upon their entry onto our territory, waited until the terrorists came to about 30 to 50 yards and opened strong, precise fire, surprising them entirely. Lie down. Aside from the captured terrorist who wore an Albanian flag, we liquidated 4 more terrorists armed with automatic rifles and handheld missile launchers. This action prevented the entry of a larger group of terrorists who were waiting. One more action is over. How many encounters with terrorists so far? Oh, many times already. Daily we have these terrorists. First they send some scouting missions, and then larger or smaller groups. And we eliminate them daily. While we do our job here, NATO Air Force is throwing cluster bombs. But no problem, we're well masked and we're protected, so we have no losses. Can they pass here, the terrorists? No way. The army is well equipped and ready for action. And the message for your family, for your girlfriends? Oh, they should take care of themselves. We are here in safety. Few of us are from Niš, for example, the 4 of us here, so many regards to all people of Niš. The Interim Executive Council of Kosovo in these hard war times gives equal attention to production, social and humanitarian issues and undertakes necessary measures to normalize the activities in all social spheres, stated Zoran Anđelković at today's session. The activities focus on the program of rehabilitation adopted by the government of Serbia recently. Many efforts have been made to conduct the spring sowing activities as planned despite the daily bombing raids. From the beginning of the aggression until May 9th, pursuant to the decree of the federal government bodies, Russia and Belarus have sent around 800 tons of humanitarian assistance. Other donors have sent 2,853 tons, total of 3,653 tons of humanitarian assistance in food products, said at the press conference the Deputy Minister for Health and Social Policy and the Coordinator of Humanitarian Assistance. So far, 800 tons of humanitarian aid in products has reached those countries that need it the most. The goal is to collect as much as possible, but it is essential to carefully check all food and medicine. For that reason, there are checkpoints for humanitarian assistance arranged with all appropriate government bodies. There are problems with Montenegro because borders are closed because of a disregard for the federal government bodies. However precious the humanitarian aid is insufficient. Federal Republic of Yugoslavia houses 700,000 refugees from Bosnia and Croatia since 1995. The international organizations take care only of about 250,000. NATO bombing has left over 500,000 workers jobless, that is 2 million people without their livelihood. When you add that over 160,000 people from Kosovo left their homes because of NATO bombing and the Albanian terrorists and sought refuge in Serbia, it is clear that the humanitarian assistance is insufficient. Many Western analysts deem the decision of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia and the Supreme Command on the partial withdrawal of the units and police a right move at the right moment, which has inflicted a severe blow to the criminal alliance. Even the US press reports this, suggesting to Madeleine Albright to submit her resignation. At the same time, China and Russia demanded NATO end this bombing immediately for the sake of a political solution, and that each plan has to be acceptable to Yugoslavia. China and Russia feel that the political solution of the problem is possible only by end of the NATO bombardment. It was announced in Beijing after the meeting between the special envoy of the Russian President Chernomyrdin with Chinese officials. Every plan has to be accepted to Yugoslavia, stressed the official representative of the Chinese Foreign Ministry. Chernomyrdin traveled from Beijing this afternoon after his meeting with the President Jiang Zemin, the Prime Minister Zhu Zhuji, and the Vice President of the Chinese government, Chen Qingchen. The two sides found broad understanding on the solution of the Kosovo crisis. Chernomyrdin came to Beijing last night after a telephone call between the Chinese president and the Russian President Yeltsin. The two presidents demanded an immediate end of the NATO bombing, agreeing that the end of the aggression against Yugoslavia is a prerequisite for political solution. President Zhang said that any peace plan must have the consent of Yugoslavia. Today's Russian-Chinese consultations helped both countries to increase their mutual understanding. China and Russia will continue to develop their cooperation in many spheres and strengthen their strategic partnership. Russia calls the international community to consider seriously and respond positively to the new Belgrade initiative towards the resolution of the Kosovo crisis. The decision of the Yugoslav government to partially withdraw the armed forces from Kosovo is one more goodwill gesture that could result in the end of all military actions of NATO, stated the Foreign Minister Ivanov after the meeting with his French counterpart Vedrin. At the press conference, Ivanov said that this gesture of the West would help the political solution of the crisis, which he also discussed with the head of the French diplomacy and on the eve of tomorrow's visit to Moscow by Jacques Chirac. If West doesn't react positively to this goodwill gesture of Belgrade, this will mean that NATO practically gives up the political resolution of the crisis and conducts its policy to reach goals that the headquarters in Brussels has not publicly admitted yet. The discussion will continue tomorrow with the Deputy Secretary of State of the U.S., Thrope Talbot, who is in Moscow twice in the last 2 weeks. Talbot and the American leadership are especially interested in the details of the discussions between Viktor Chernomyrdin and the Chinese officials. And Chernomyrdin will probably notify President Yeltsin already tonight about these discussions. Viktor Chernomyrdin already said that with regard to the resolution of the Kosovo crisis, Moscow and Beijing are in full agreement that this solution can be reached only by peaceful means, which means that one should expect a joint coordinated initiative. At the same time, before any negotiations, the NATO actions have to stop, agree Moscow and Beijing. The Vice President of Russian Duma, Sergei Baburin, said that Russia should pursue the political solution even more actively, as well as give direct military and technical aid to Yugoslavia. If Russia provided to Yugoslavia up-to-date anti-aircraft defenses, NATO would stop its bombing immediately and accept negotiations. After the interview of Baburin, the anchor of NTV added that this is not a solitary position of the Vice President of Duma and that it can be soon expected from other political circles in Moscow. According to the President of the UN Security Council, the debate on China's proposal for a presidential statement of condemnation of the bombing of the Chinese embassy in Belgrade will continue tomorrow. The debate behind closed doors lasted for about an hour and showed deep divisions among NATO countries as well as other members of the UN Security Council. USA, Great Britain and France do not want to accept responsibility for what they do in their aggression against Yugoslavia, try to derail the discussion and present the brutal embassy attack as a mistake, which is a hypocritical apology. But China doesn't give up from insisting that UN Security Council react appropriately. China has a strong support of Russia and other members of the Council. The Chinese ambassador to UN, Qinhua Sun, stated that the attack of the Chinese embassy has been condemned by the entire world and that the UN Security Council must act accordingly. The Russian ambassador Lavrov said it is embarrassing that some countries refuse to meet the legitimate demand of China, who is asking for condemnation of the attack in Belgrade, an investigation and punishment of those behind it. In Geneva, at the UN Conference on Disarmament, China protested again against the bombing of its embassy in Belgrade. The Chinese ambassador deemed it a barbaric act in Yugoslavia, a country victim of the greatest humanitarian disaster since World War II. NATO, ruled by the US, must clarify this action and take all political, legal and economic consequences. He also expressed doubts in the NATO report and requested a full investigation. Chinese TV and cinemas are boycotting US movies. Now they're showing films about the China combat against the US during the Korean War and Yugoslav films about the partisan combat in World War II. The Greek Prime Minister Kostas Simitis stated that the entire world begins to understand the consequences of the aggression against Yugoslavia. Foreign Minister Papandreou deemed the Yugoslav decision on partial withdrawal of forces a positive step furthering the political solution. This was also reiterated by the Defense Minister Kotsasopoulos, who stressed that NATO should respond to this official decision by stopping the bombing. The Vice President of the Czech government, Vladimir Špigel, stated that the Yugoslav decision on partial withdrawal from Kosovo a hopeful step opening the political solution option. Austrian media react to this decision of the Yugoslav government with great attention. Most see it as an encouraging sign of peace. Criticizing NATO for its numerous mistakes, Austrian media say that NATO has reached a cul-de-sac. British daily papers have publicized the Yugoslav decision that due to the conclusion of the anti-terrorist actions, part of the forces will be withdrawn from Kosovo. Clearly, British papers were surprised by this decision, but as Guardian adds, it comes at the right moment. Despite the stubbornness of some Western leaders, Guardian says that this is not an end, but at least a good sign of the approaching end, which is confirmed by the official position of Russia, who calls this Yugoslav decision a crucial move towards resolving the crisis. British media also report on the intensified opposition to the bombing in the alliance itself. As noted by the Daily Telegraph in an editorial, there is a growing pressure on NATO to stop this action, especially after the bombing of the Chinese embassy. The NATO spokesman is more and more an apologist of the growing failures after 7 weeks of bombing. There is growing divide between the rhetoric and reality. The air campaign has failed and the diplomatic options have been narrowed, states the Daily Telegraph.
For more on the military action in Yugoslavia, click onto our website.